Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome in. Hi, I'm Skyr. And tonight we are returning to some reading fun. How's everyone doing today? There we go. Yeah, okay. Now,
I floppy VT.
I just needed to get all my commands updated to the new username. So, there you go. But yeah, it's been a minute. I've been playing some Pal World on my own. I think I'm just gonna pick up where I left off on stream rather than start it over on stream because it's a survival game. The first few hours of a survival game is kind of boring. But today we're returning to some Lioness Rampant. Yeah. Don't have much updates other than I'm gonna try to keep up streaming more. Even though I feel like I haven't done anything since I guess Wednesday last week, but yeah. Yeah. Maybe tomorrow I'll stream while making animations. Yeah. That's fun. I'm guessing during the afternoon. Or are we not doing any It Takes Two tomorrow evening? Like 2 3 p.m? Yeah. The usual. Okay. Just wanted to double check whether I should be expecting to stream something else in the evening if we're not. Then tomorrow evening is the usual. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Though some Tuesdays I might need to take off because like Tuesdays are cheap movie nights and there's like many movies I want to watch. Oh my gosh, that's a cute animation. That's cool. Go ahead and show on screen and make yeah, no okay, raw. Yeah, this button. Like, what button do I push? Yeah. Self-taught animation streaming creation. Oh, maybe bigger. Ah, okay. At least there's no peeners in the background. It was working. It just stopped. It doesn't loop. At least not in Discord. Let's see. Yeah. Oops, I didn't mean to save it. Oh, it's literally just saving it instead of refreshing. What the heck? Okay. I give up. There's multiple saves. Weird. Okay, there we go. Okay. That's strange. Anywho. Because I didn't want your eye to... I didn't want your eye to break with the winking. The blinking. Okay. Although, what I'm gonna quickly move it here. Just the. Oh no, it's. I can't show it anymore. Where it freezes. Wait, it's literally looking downward, looking like, what is that? That's the loop one? Yeah, okay. Yeah, just like it defaults to looking down into the right or model's left. It's like, what the heck? How come I looking at down here? That's all I saw on my left screen. Is like, what the heck? There we go. So I'm animating as anti-E. That's fine. That's cool. Looks cool. I'm sure in ways it helps you out in either way because you know how it would move in it while being animated, so you know what to do in Live 2D to get it moving the way you want it animated, right? So. I kind of did a lot today. And even just in the span of this evening after work. They were like, I didn't have food for lunch at all, so like let's go out grocery shopping to do a quick grocery shop list. Stopped at PetSmart, figured out what enclosure I want to buy my snake next because she's already kind of outgrown the one she's in. And then kind of just watched TV and just like had a very minimal lunch supper of garlic sausage and crackers. Can I animate as smoothly as a V2 model? Yeah. Huh, what? I found something though? What did you find? Wah, 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 wah. Frame rate. Ooh, yeah. Oh, I need to get lotion on my tattoo before bed. It's getting dried out. Not at the itchy stage yet, but it's getting there. One is 8 frames per second and the other is 15. It's wild. Learning, yeah. Learning is fun. Learning is good for the brain. I need to learn some more stuff. Maybe I don't have more to talk about. I think that's one thing I lack from the ADHD motive is being able to go into tirades of what I'm knowledgeable on, because I'm a master at nothing, but have like very base general knowledge on what I'm interested in. Like nothing I could just go on rants talking about. You just go zoom. Okay. Sport time is chugging, but don't set your computer on fire now. I don't have the funds to get you another one. Jeez. It's not much different because like, you probably only have a certain amount of frames anyway. Like it's a bit smoother, but like better. Yeah. Particularly the eyebrows are a lot smoother. Noticeably more smoother. You have 60. You do have 63 frames. Okay. Keep fairly in mind, I'm not one of those people who claim they could see every frame as it goes. Or it was like, I'll just say this: I cannot, if you put a 30 frame per second next to a 60 frame per second, like scene by scene, I would notice a difference. But like looking from one, like going from one to the other, I do not notice a difference. I know some people are able to tell a difference, but I'm not one of those people. Yeah, like if it's laggy as heck, it's below 30 frames per second. I could tell when when something is chugging below 30 frames per second. But like human eye, the standard human eye, you normally can't notice much above the 30 frames per second. So like there are those who have either trained their eyes to be able to, or just have gotten used to it and be able to tell, but like I'm not able to tell. If it's below 30 frames per second, I could tell when it's lagging. But anything that's between 30 and 60, I don't see a difference. I mean, I was playing, because my new TV is a smart TV, so I'm actually able to play like Xbox games from the TV without actually having playing it on my Xbox itself. It's not remote play ish, cloud playing. That's the word. And like, I was playing Dead by Daylight on it once, and it's like, I was knowing something like it was like the input lag to what I was seeing on screen was like 1 2-3 seconds behind, and enough that it was really messing me up. So like I played one game, I was like, no, I can't do this because I can't justify where to click buttons do not explode generators, for example. So that game I need to play on console, so there's no input lag, because cloud gaming there's gonna be input lag. Probably be more obvious if I didn't have it looping, because it's like only 1 second and the other is 1.5 seconds. Yeah. It's still defaults on the face of what the fuck am I looking at on my left hand side. They only have 60 frames. Yeah. So so it probably just doesn't have that jarring effect of. I mean, it is still looping, but it's maybe less jarring if you probably like went back into the default position. I forgot you put your peoples as goat peoples. Snail goat, yeah. My animation is 1 megabyte. I mean, that my animation is also colored, right? So oh, you got above kilobytes. Okay, yours is even bigger. I mean, that clip is also more than just a wink. It's just a eye roll and pout and all that. Oh. Yeah. I mean, like, the... Yeah, it's fine. Nuts. Oh, it's not looped. Okay. Ah! Of course it's gonna do this again. Ah? Zoom in and out, but it's not playing. It's fine. At least the eye flip is less, like, it's still jarring, but it's not as jarring. Basically, it's as soon as you get working the way you want to work, it'll make sense in my brain, but right now it's just like, yeah, that's the thing you're trying to do. Yeah, it just, that second of, it's like closing the bottom lid and then all of a sudden like changing your mind and going upward instead. Yeah, the hard explode is nice. Yeah, yours. Yeah. I mean, I do notice it on yours, but it's not as jarring because it's all in one. It's all one position, anyways. On the mouth. It's just I find it jarring on mine because you go from it closing down and all of a sudden like going up. It's like if it hadn't been going up, like I said, I trust I trust what you're doing and all that. It's just that last frame is just a little bit. Yeah, it's. So I would still take it. Like I think I'm trying to say that I would still understand it as a wink without that last upward curl type frame, but I know you're trying to do something that. Blah. Window. Move when I tell you to move. Thank you. Wow. Okay. Yeah, no, experience. I just watched a lot of Disney, how it's made growing up. Yeah. But smart. I was. It's like no animation, but. It's just like it's just ignoring. It's like experiences. Just you have to have all the experiences in butts. I mean, like you normally draw. That's kind of true. The next thing you know, you're animated porn, and then you're just into just drawing hentai, and that's it. It's like so much for VTubers. It's just all hentai. To be fair, I'm not against animating smut, you know. I know. I am aware. I'm just realizing. To be fair, it's you'd probably make a killing at it if you get through a lot and just market it. Ow! They rubbed at my tattoo where I shouldn't have. Oops. Yeah. Very true. But just kind of like it's like, hey, you'd make a killing at it. Your uncle was to host and make a website post, never to look at it, and then all of a sudden, then one time he did look at it. It's like it's all porn animations. He was like, no, my eyes. He's offering us, oh, if you do, you have to post, never look at it because it's spicy. He's building a server for fun. Nice. curiosity. Okay, no. Okay. Yep. Okay. So, should probably, yeah. Should probably get started on book time before we run out of time to finish a chapter, let alone more than one. Probably not more than one because this book has long ass chapters. Not that that's a problem at all. It's just my voice starts to die by the end of it. Last time on Lioness Rampant, it doesn't quite ring so well as last time on DBZ. Dragon Ball Z. But my one line I keep going back to because that's basically anime I grew up watching. It was Inuyasha, DBZ, and some Naruto. Not a lot of Naruto, but some Naruto. But Elena is on. So basically, the last episode was basically learning everything that happened in Chorus. Well, Alana was away and Roger had been revived by Tom. Minus the sexy parts between Tom and Roger. But it and like it wasn't even insinuated. It's just been confirmed by Tammy that they were having fun in the bedroom. So now we are returning to Atlanta's point of view. And that is her getting back to Chorus. So she could eventually hand over the Dominion Jewel to Jean and deal with Roger yet again. Chapter 6, Homecoming. The travelers set out from Port Kane immediately after landing, eager to reach their destination. Riding slowly to reaccustom themselves after several weeks out of the saddle, they would be in Chorus before nightfall. They halted shortly after midday at an inn Alana and Raoul remembered, where the squires had often stopped on trips to Kane. The food was good. The place so quiet that a rest seemed in order. Birdie and Thayet napped. The men played chess. Alana took Faithful to sit under a courtyard tree, scratching his ears and enjoying the sun. She was half drowsing when she heard the approaching rider. Someone is in a hurry, sleepy Faithful remarked. Alana nodded, refusing to open her eyes. The buzz of summer crickets was soothing. After days of waves and gulls, never would she board a water vessel again. Curious, she peeped through her lashes. The rider entered the yard. With a yell, she leapt, dumping Faithful to the ground. George! The thief grinned and grabbed her. his brawny arms closing tight. She was lifted, spun, and then well kissed. Alana looked up into his dancing hazel eyes. How do you know we were here? She asked, wiping teary eyes on his sleeve. Stop that, lass, he whispered. Messenger birds, remember? You're thin. Haven't you been eaten, my hero? I was seasick, she grinned. It was the only way to get home in time. Are you alright? You look worn. George kissed her again, taking his time to convince her of his health. He released her, a wicked twinkle in his eyes. Now your drinking can kill me. I'll die, happy man. You know about Liam? He chuckled. Sweet. Everyone knows the Lioness and the dragon were prowling Serene. I heard 2 songs about you this week. Have you counted her fingers yet, Cooper? Liam walked toward them, his eyes a pale crystal. George smiled. I never thought you wouldn't take care of her, dragon. He held out a hand, keeping a grip on Alana. I assume you're used to being sung about. Liam's eyes darkened to blue-gray. He shook the offered hand with a smile. They'll have more to sing about, I guarantee. George stared past Liam, eyes wide. Bless me, crooked god, he whispered. Thayet and Buri emerged from the inn, still yawning. Alana knew what had caught George's attention. The afternoon sun sank into Thayet's midnight hair, while it turned her skin a deep cream. Thayet would look good anywhere, Alana thought, with only a touch of envy. Princess Thayet Jian Vilima. May I present George Cooper? George, this is Princess Thayet Serene and her bodyguard, Gurirem Turakom. Don't bother, muttered Buri. George released Alana to bow and kiss Thayet's hand. He won't remember anyway. George straightened and winked at the Khmer. I'm odd, Gurirem Turakom, but I'm rarely that odd. Charmed in spite of herself, Buri smiled. Alana told us about you, she said. We've been warned. It's Buri, anyway. I told you I'd bring them back, Raoul said. George looked at Alana and gave her a squeeze. I'll never doubt you again, lad. He would be the first, Karam announced. He and Raoul had brought the horses around. George laughed. Were I you, I'd treat my wife to be his cousin and king. Better than that. The 2 men gripped each other's arms in greeting. George exchanged his tired horse for a fresh one, joining them for the ride to Chorus. His presence made the journey pass quickly. He refused to relay the news, but had no trouble wheeling tales of their adventures from Buri and Thayet. Alana was not fooled. The past months had taken a toll on George. He was thinner. Small lines framed out from his eyes and framed his broad mouth. She wondered precisely what had been going on. Where was his court, Scholar, and Solemn, Merrick, Rispa, and the others? If she asked now, she knew he would laugh and ask the questions she didn't want answered. Has he always been this obstinate? She asked Faithful. The cat sniffed. You're a fine one to talk. She grinned. I don't know obstinacy when I see it. Who does? She At the crest of the hills, between seaport and capital, Buri drew up her pony. Mountain gods! She whispered, her black eyes huge with awe. The others stopped beside her. Forest lay on the southern bank of the Oloron River, towers glinting in the sun. The homes of wealthy men lined the river to the north. Tanners, smiths, wainwrights, carpenters, and the poorer clustered on the bank to the south. The city was a richly colored tapestry. The great gate in Kingsbridge, the maze of the lower city, the marketplace, the tall houses in the merchants and the gentry quarters, the gardens of the temple districts, the palace. This last was the city's crown and southern border. Beyond it, the royal forest stretched for leagues. It was not as lovely as Berat, nor as colorful as Udyapur, but it was Alana's place. Glad to be home? George asked. Yes. He reached to wipe a tear from her cheek. Been that long a journey, has it? He whispered. Alana met his eyes in their hazel depths. She saw a degree of love that frightened her as it warmed her. Inside the city gates, a small company of Bazir, Hakim Farrar at its head. They bowed to Alana from their saddles. She bowed in reply. Hakim fell in with Karam. The others formed a loose circle around the travelers. Is this necessary? Alana asked. We wanted to be inconspicuous. She and Thayet exchanged rueful glances. It is, George said. You wouldn't have been able to do it anyway. Not with yon big, brawny lad amongst you. He nodded toward Liam, who talked with a Vizier rider. Things have changed somewhat, and all Chorus knows you're Jonathan Knight. You'd do worse than ride with a guard. The gate at House Alao was open. The hostlers greeted Alana cheerfully, showing no surprise at the size of her party. It was Thayet who hesitated, a worried frown on her face. Buri and I should find an inn somewhere, she pointed out. If you can direct us. I know one, Liam said. We can all stay together. Don't be ridiculous, Alana interrupted. Why should we split up? He's expecting you, George told them. Oh? Commented Thayet. Where did he learn about Buri and Liam and me? The voice? Alana asked Karam. The burly man chuckled. You have to admit, Lioness, the voice is a useful man. Turning to the others, he explained, I've been in contact with the voice of the tribe since we entered the Menor waters. We're expected, all of us. You'll hurt Mal's feeling if you go elsewhere, George said. He's that hospitable. He puts up my mother and cousin too. The man shouldn't be a bachelor, not with a fine, big house like this. Thayet smiled ruefully. If you're certain. George bowed. I can't lie to a pretty lady. Alana dismounted, giving her reins to a hostler. Faithful leapt down to vanish into the shadows as Ilanai Cooper and Rispa came out to the courtyard. Alana rushed to hug them, trying not to cry anymore. How could she have forgotten what being home was like? She introduced Thayet, Buri, and Liam. She didn't know what George's mother and cousin were doing in Miles's home, but she was glad to see them. Glancing to her left, in the shadows she saw Karam taking Rispa in his arms. Smiling, she looked away. George nudged Alana, pointing to the wide, open front door. Go say hello to him. He's been up since dawn. Oops. Hitting the wrong buttons, apparently. Alana ran to Miles and hugged him. Neither of them required words, which was just as well, since both were unable to speak. Miles wept unashamedly, soaking his beard as he beamed at her with delight. He too looked older and worn, with bits of gray in his hair. He doesn't think Roger is dangerous, Alana realized. She had to find out what was going on. Come in, Miles told the others. Welcome, all of you. After dinner, they gathered in the library. The others talked, but for the most part, Alana listened, happy to be there. Grim subjects and the jewel were left for the next day. Lyette, Burry, and Liam were never given a chance to feel left out. Once they were introduced to Miles, the night made them welcome. Lyette's offer to find somewhere else to stay was brushed off by their host, as Alana had known it would be. Karam stayed close to Rispa, and Alana realized with a twinge of sadness that his days as her mentor companion were done. It surprised and delighted her to see Miles take Alana's hand. George saw her looking and winked. Later, she accused him of matchmaking, and he made no attempt to deny it. That awkward moment when your mother-in-law to be is also your stepmother. Like adopted stepmother. Or adopted mother. I'm not sure how that works. Finally, Alana dozed off in her chair, waking slightly as Liam carried her to bed. Kissing her forehead, he whispered, "Sleep well, Lioness." I don't like being Lioness to you. He didn't seem to hear. Gently, Liam closed the door, and she slept again. She woke instantly sometime later. What had roused her? She listened, but the house was silent. Looking around, she saw a blot of brownish light by the window. Lightning hung nearby. She lunged and unsheathed it as the blot gained size and substance. Put that thing down, a familiar voice snapped. I haven't hurt you. Tom? Even before he finished materializing, he glowed enough for her to see his features. Crossing his arms on his chest, he lifted an eyebrow. Don't you have any nightshirts? Liam had removed only her boots and stockings. Alana jumped up and grabbed her twin, holding him tightly. Tom's embrace was as hard as her own. He buried his too-hot face in her shoulder. Tom, what's wrong? You have a fever? Her voice faltered. You're glowing. He gripped her shoulders. Calm down. The heat's part of it, so just calm down. He touched the crow's feet at the corners of her eyes, traced the hard line of a cheekbone, smoothed over the thin crease that edged her mouth. He too had lines that weren't his before, and he was even thinner than she. He looked tired, mortally tired. On impulse, she touched the ember-stone at her throat. With the talisman's aid, she saw that Tom shone with a rust-red fire, the color of old blood. How do I look? He whispered, knowing the ember's properties. She tried to smile. You don't want to know. Swallowing, she added. It's as if you have another gift. Your own is corrupted. Tom finished. Enough. We'll trade stories later. You look half dead. He smoothed her hair with a shaking hand. I just wanted to look at you and see if you forgive me. There's nothing to forgive, she insisted. You did me a favor, and I can talk with him. I can see for myself if I made a mistake when if he could have redeemed himself somehow. Nice try, he scoffed in his old way. I think he could have lived with it if he'd stayed in his tomb. But it's true, she protested. Go back to bed, alright? He began to fade. Get some rest. He vanished. She stared at the spot where he'd been. Did anyone else know Tom was dying? Could they have warned her? But what was there to warn about besides the fact that he glowed in the dark? Her eyes blurred. She sniffed. Was Mal still up? Slipping barefoot out of the room, Alana made for the library, Mal's favorite room. The library door was open. She froze on the landing, not wanting to intrude on any private reunions. I couldn't get away sooner. The deep voice was Jonathan's. I don't have parties because we're in mourning, but these quiet get-togethers take hours all the same. He should have waited. Alana recognizes George's lilt. She fell asleep in her chair, poor thing. She's weary. They all are. And there's little rest for my lady night here, Jonathan sighed. Does he know she's back? He knows. I just don't... What? George came out and bowed to Alana, indicating she should go into the library. Pushing her inside, he closed the door, leaving her alone with John. He stood before the hearth, cradling Faithful. She'd forgotten he was a head taller than she. His black clothes emphasized his sapphire eyes. His mustache and hair were darker than his velvet tunic. She looked at his elegantly carved mouth, straight nose, thinking, John's still the most handsome man I've ever met. And that includes Roger. He'd changed since their angry parting. His face had stubborn lines, and there was a seriousness about him she liked. Deeply moved, she knelt and bowed her head. My liege, I'm yours to command. He put his hands on her hair. You're sure, Alana? She met his eyes. Until death and after. Jonathan. He swallowed. I accept your fealty, Sir Alana. I accept, and I vow to return fealty with fealty, honor with honor, until death and beyond it. Lifting her to her feet, he kissed each cheek. The kingliness faded. You don't know what it means to have you home. His eyes filled suddenly. He killed himself, Alana. He made it look like a hunting accident, but it wasn't. Oh gods, why did I have to lose both of them? He covered his face with his hands and cried. Alana held him, shushing him and weeping herself. When he was calm again and she had dried her tears, Alana said, "You may not have another chance to be alone for a while. What do you want me to do with the jewel?" Jonathan drew a deep breath. You really have it? I'll get it if you like. She tried to pull away, and Jonathan tightened his arms. Not yet, alright? This is so comfortable. It's been almost a year since I held you. Remember? He sighed and released her. Keep it safe for now. I need to think of a way to present you and it suitably. He smiled briefly. You don't know how much it means to be able to tell people we have the Dominion Jewel. Perhaps it will even stop the rumors of a curse. A short time later, George rejoined them. All's well then? Alana and Jonathan smiled at each other. At last, George sighed. I never felt right when you two were on the outs with each other. We're having tea, he told Alana. Will you join us? At her nod, he got a third cup and filled it from the kettle on the hearth, refreshing Jonathan's cup and his own. It's copper owl, red griffin, he explained to Alana, who squinted at the scarlet liquid. The taste grows on you. Jonathan raised his in toast. 2 old friends. The best friends. So mote it be, Alana replied. Hear, hear, George added. Oh, I'm sorry, a low female voice exclaimed. John turned to the door and froze, eyes widening in awe. Great merciful mother, he breathed. A tousled Thiet stood there, clutching a dressing gown at her throat. Faithful woke me up, and then I couldn't sleep. The cat jumped into Lana's lap, startling her. She hadn't even seen him leave. Thiet, flustered, avoided John's eyes as she tried to tuck her bare feet under the hem of her robe. Alana concealed a grin with her hand. George drew the princess into the room. We're having a bit of tea, he told her, closing the door. There's a seat by the fire, over next to John. The king-to-be stood and raised Thiet's hand to his lips. Their eyes met. Thiet's puzzled, his searching. Quickly, the princess drew her hand away, saying dryly, We haven't been introduced. Alana couldn't speak until she could master her amusement. Already, Thiet had John off balance, and already they seemed attracted to each other. I knew it, she told herself triumphantly. I knew I was right to bring her. Thiet Jean Villema, George said, eyeing Alana. May I present Jonathan of Comté? Are you officially king now, John? Or does that wait until the coronation? Jonathan was not listening. Does the introduction meet your standards, Your Highness? His voice matched Thiet's for dryness. The warlord's daughter curtsied to just the degree of proper for a princess to greet a king, not an inch more. Instead of modestly looking down, she kept her eyes on John's. I am Highness no longer, Your Majesty. My father is dead, and I am in exile. I hope to become Your Majesty's loyal, low-born subject. She inclined her head graciously, her curtsy not wobbling an iota. Alana sighed wistfully. She could never match Thiet's skill at courtly female behavior. Thiet glanced at her, knowing the reason for the sigh, and her gravity gave away. She began to giggle, then laugh. The 4th cup of tea was poured for her, and she took the seat beside John. The next morning, Alana and Liam met for their dawn workout. Bury and Thiet, half awake, joined them shortly after they began. The 4 worked silently and hard for an hour before splitting up for the day. Alana bathed, deciding to pass up morning meal. Her nerves were wound too tightly for sleep or food. Despite a short night and excitement the day before, she was wide awake and ready for something she'd wanted to do for weeks. Duke Roger was on the wall overlooking the city gate. As she rode into one of the many palace courtyards, Alana stared up at him for long moments, then glanced at the 4 Bazir who had accompanied her this far. How far would their unasked for protection extend? Their leader bowed, interpreting her look correctly. We await you here, woman who rides like a man. Glancing up at Roger, he added, as long as we may see you plainly. She nodded, leaving her mare to the hostlers, and draping Faithful over her shoulder, she climbed the stairs up to the wall. Roger leaned against the battlement, waiting. Alana was surprised to see his hair was too long, and there were food stains on his robe. He used to be vain of his appearance. Drawing a deep breath, she put her cat down. Behave yourself, she told him firmly. She approached to within arm's reach and stopped. The cat, his tail dancing with badly contained hatred, crouched at her feet. So, Roger said, his his light voice poisonous. You survived. What a pity. Alana grinned with relief. She didn't have to pretend everything was fine and that she liked this man. Open war was declared. Hello, Roger. You look pale. Not enough time in the sun? His eyes, lighter than John's, narrowed. You're cocky, aren't you? Killed anyone recently? No, it's so depressing to come back and find one's work reversed. Her nerves hummed as if she were in combat. A cruel smile curled at his lips. You know who to thank. Alana shrugged. I know. Tell me something, will you? You meant to kill her. The Queen, the King, and John. Roger tugged his beard. You asked about the days before you killed me. Yes, I did. You doubted it? Or did you persuade yourself a court trial would have absolved you from complicity in my death? She flinched, looked aside. You aren't absolved. If not for you, it would have been king. I would have been king. For those were my plans. Now, of course, it's different. I had nothing to do with their deaths. I have promised to behave. Not that I can misbehave, since my gift stayed behind when I came back to the living. He grinned wolfishly. It keeps my tomb warm for me against my return. Alana shuddered. Don't you want to assure yourself my fangs are drawn? Use your keepsake. He pointed at the ember. I know all about it from Tom. Alana did not like that Tom had seen fit to tell Roger that bit of news. Still, she touched the ember and saw only him, not even a tinge of orange fire. Disquieted, she released the ember. You're still a dangerous man, Roger. Their gift just made things easier for you. He reached out and gripped her wrists, searching her eyes. You've changed, Squire Allen. You're very much the experienced knight, aren't you? And you don't fear me anymore. Not as you once did. He let her go. Alana tucked her hands into her pockets to warm them. Thinking about what he'd said, she replied slowly. You know something? There are sandstorms that strip man and horse and bury them. I've seen them. I saw bones piled higher than my head for the folly of a bad king and those who wanted his throne. I lived through a blizzard that froze every other living creature solid. Against those things, you're only a man. I can deal with you. Delight played across his face and eyes. I'm sure you can, my dear. But I won't give you the chance. Not a second time. He walked away, climbing to a higher level. Alana watched him go. At last, she sighed and picked up her enraged cat, warming her nose against his fur. "Calm down," she whispered. "I'm not fooled. That's what you're worried about." She felt cold. He's up to something. I'll stake my reputation on it. Raoul waited for her at the foot of the stairs. Instead of the rough shirt and breeches he'd worn aboard ship, he wore the royal blue and silver of the King's Own, with the silver star of the commander on his chest. Alana stopped to admire him. "I know you told me you were commanding Leon," she said as she joined him, "but hearing it and seeing it are two different things." They started walking deeper into the palace grounds. "Did they run to seed while you were off fetching me?" Raoul shook his head, grinning. "Mahmoud ibn Shaham, my second, he kept them on their toes. Still, I'm glad to be back. I worry when I'm not able to look after things. I saw you were talking who you were talking to, by the way. And what do you make of him?" "He's crazy," Alana said flatly. "I don't know if it's because he's above ground when he should be in his tomb, or if the spell that brought him back rearranged his mind. But it doesn't matter which. He's crazy, and he's dangerous." Raoul nodded. "I agree. Gary agrees. Sometimes I think John agrees. But what could we do?" King rolled. God rest his passing. You remember how much he disliked a ruckus. He wanted to forgive and forget. Especially forget. He restored Roger's estates, his titles, everything. So now we're stuck with a crazy royal duke and all those people who think we're cursed for keeping him. Can we talk about something else? I'm getting depressed. Alana smiled. "All right. Tell me how you like commanding the King's Own." "It's all right," admitted Raoul. They talked through a passage to emerge in the trading area for night. They walked through a passage to emerge in the trading area for knights, squires, and pages. It's not like the border patrols. Commanding the own means you have to sneak and spy. What with people conspiring to kill Jonathan? "What?" she whispered. Raoul turned red. "Forget I said that. It's taken care of. Ask John. Listen, I don't want to talk about me. What have you been doing? What's a dragon like? And why in the name of Mithros did it go to the roof of the world?" It's a long story. Lana looked around at the open-air courts, the racks of wooden swords and staffs, the practice dummies, the targets. At this early hour, only a few knights were out. Gary, Alex, Joffrey, and Miron. They gathered around, clapping her on the back and demanding to hear all of her adventures. Laughing, she refused, telling them she'd have plenty of time to spin tales. As they talked, she examined each face. Alex's was closed as ever, although he seemed pleased about something. Gary stopped to think before he spoke, so he wasn't as sarcastic as he used to be. Miles had said Gary had taken up Duke Gareth's duties. Alana thought the responsibility was good for her friend. Even Joffrey seemed sharper, more honed. He told Alana Scanran's raiders kept him hopping all winter in the northern borders. "Come on, Alan. Alana," he corrected himself as the others laughed. "Let's see if you're still in shape." He tossed her a wooden practice sword. "Of course she's in shape," Gary said tartly. "I doubt she did much fencing with a shanked dragon," Alex commented. When I looked at him to see if he meant something nasty, he explained, I know Iron Armix prefers hand-to-hand techniques over weapons. Alana hefted the practice sword, testing its weight. It doesn't mean he avoids weapons. Gary, Rahul, and Alex sat in the railings to watch. Is it true Saren's in shambles? Gary called as Alana and Joffrey squared off. Yes. Alana sidestepped Joffrey's lunge and engaged his blade, twisting down and up. He freed his sword and darted back, looking at her with respect. Alana concentrated, knowing she was being tested to see if she'd changed. From what people had said the night before, she knew Jonathan needed her as a knight to point out to skeptics that his vassals were loyal and strong. That she was female was a source of trouble, but she could balance that by proving, here and now, her abilities were still the same. Joffrey came in with a series of chopping blows, trying to limit her to defense. She slid away and kept him turning. He faltered and she darted in, her sword coming to rest at the base of his throat. Joff lowered his blade. I'd forgotten how God's cursed fast you are, he grinned. Gary climbed down. My turn. Alana got into position. However, was aware that servants and nobles were coming into the yard to watch. With a grim smile, she went to work, forcing Gary to attack. She beat him with a disarm like the one she tried on Joff. Hooking his sword out of his hands. Raoul didn't last as long as Gary. He wasn't really trying, and she told him so. I'm used to you beating me, he told her with a grin. It's hard to change an old habit. From the evidence, I needn't bother. You're still the best. Except for maybe for Alex. He nodded at the dark, young man who was seated on the railing. Come on, Alex. Give the Lioness a try. The hair on the back of her neck stood up. It was weird to hear her war name on an old friend's lips. It told her, more than anything else she'd seen or heard, how much she'd grown away from her fellow knights. Alex shook his head. I want to catch the Lady Knight when she's fresh. His eyes met Alana's with an expression she couldn't read. Some other time, I promise. Others volunteered, eager to try a pass or two. Alana had another 5 practice bouts before she bowed out. She was getting hot. The men and boys protested her departure, but she noticed they began to fill the courts as soon as she stepped out of hers. I should be flattered that they held off practicing to watch me, she thought, accepting a towel. One sec. Okay, sorry about that. Gary walked her to the stables, an arm around her shoulders. Are the last 2 even Tortalin? Alana pouted, wiping her face. No, the big man was pleased. One was Galen, and the black was Karthaki. They're here for the coronation. A little early, aren't they? Everyone wants to know what Jonathan's like. They particularly want to know if he'll be king for long. That's why it's good to have you at home. Most of us, younger knights, aren't known outside Tortal. The Lioness is known and respected. A king who commands your loyalty is worth paying attention to. They'd reached the stable doors. Beet red. Alana muttered, "Hogwash." "To you, it's hogwash," Gary agreed. "To foreigners, it's important. They'll keep their fingers out of our business until they know more about John." With a cheerful salute, he left her to return to the palace and his new duties. Entering the stables, Alana found them deserted. Most of the hostlers were in the courtyards or in the paddocks, which suited her. Putting fingers to her lips, she gave an ear-splitting whistle. A stocky man slipped down from the haymow above, not bothering to pick dried grass from his straw-like hair. "Oh, there you are," Stefan commented, bowing and tugging a forelock. "It's that good to see you. Mayhap now His Majesty'll perk up. It's been that gloomsome, Mistress Alana." The light leaned against a post. "Why don't you tell me what's going on to make things so gloomsome?" Stefan looked around, wary. "Come up," he invited, climbing a ladder to the mow, "and keep your voice low." On her return to House Alana found the premises occupied by seamstresses. "It was Eleni's idea," Burry explained. "She says you and Liette need clothes. Good luck." Faithful saw the welter of fabrics and earnest-looking woman and fled with Burry. The men had already vanished. "I know you'd rather do some other things today," Eleni explained as she hauled Alana into the fitting room. "But His Majesty wants you to bring Liette to court tonight. He left you this." She handed over a sealed parchment. Breaking the seal, Alana read John's note while George's mother divested her of sword belt, tunic, and boots. "Lady Knight, tonight would be a good time to present you officially at court and to formally introduce the Princess Liette. The longer more conservative souls have to get used to you, the more productive your presence will be. This will also be an excellent opportunity, with so many there to witness, for you to present with me the object we spoke of." She nodded in approval of Jonathan's strategy as she threw the notes onto the fire. A formal introduction was a grand occasion. Foreign diplomats and Tortella nobles alike would be present. By virtue of her rank, Liette was due such a reception, even though the court was in mourning. While Alana preferred an informal welcome, she knew life would be easier if Jonathan gave her public approval. Also, giving him the jewel would help both her and him. No one would wish to enthrone a king who held the jewel, and once presented, word will get around. The sooner the better, after all the news she'd heard that day. With a sigh, she removed her shirt and breeches as an assistant came to take her measurements with a knotted cord. Grimly, she looked at the ceiling while the cord snaked around her body. The fitting, however, was almost over before it began, and the chief seamstress showed Alana dress designs. "I won't wear a gown. Not tonight," Knight said, firmly. "They'll think I'm crawling back with my tail between my legs." "You can't show your legs to the whole court His Majesty that's to be," seamstress replied. "It's indecent and disrespectful, and all the nobles will talk about ye." "They already do," Alana retorted. The woman shook her head stubbornly. "The only ladies as wears hose are them that know better than they ought to be." Her spud turned a laugh into a cough, and the seamstress glared at her. I'm not a lady. I'm a knight, Alana growled, and I'm making my bow to the court as one. Dresses are fine sometimes, but not tonight. Sir Alana is right. And you're right, Ayat put in diplomatically. She held up a sketch she'd been working on. Is this a suitable compromise? With a bit of gold or silver stripe along the seam? Elena suggested, gently as the seamstress frowned. Alana peered at it. It was a shirt and tunic with soft, full breeches instead of hose. The tunic was longer than usual, coming to the knee, yet split in the sides to the waist, ensured the wearer's freedom of movement. All right, I asked. I like it, replied Alana. Well, the seamstress commented, still skeptical. I do like this, the fact that Leia is good at doing fashion design. I mean, yeah, it is a really good thing. It's also, I think it's also more along the lines is that because she's from a different country, they have different styles, and those styles are kind of not only a different country, but like part Khmer, and Khmer's styles is much different than the royal courts. So I think it's a lot of, she's probably also drawing from like a different country and style, the different fashion that the seamstress probably doesn't know. And certainly it isn't normal for women to be wearing pants in this day and age of the that we're reading in. And I forgot to bring up a drink and I'm thirsty. I think we're almost finished the chapter. And then that'll be it for tonight. Rispa put a friendly arm around the woman's shoulders. The dark gray silk with... Oh, of course! I can see where it might be too much trouble with Princess Thayet's and Mistress Cooper's ball gowns besides. Perhaps Mistress Weaver has a shop has a shop over in... It's no trouble, snapped the seamstress, pulling out of Rispa's hold. No trouble at all. For a shop of the first cut like mine. Weaver, she sells inferior cloth and stitching that comes undone in the first bow. Rispa winked at Alana. The skirmish was settled with honor on both sides. The gleam in Elena's eye made Alana uncomfortable. George's mother was looking her over, inch by inch, leaving no part of Lana unscrutinized. The knight hurriedly began to dress. It's just like that awkward moment is like, I'm being stared at by another woman. That's my adopted father's girlfriend. Earrings, the older woman exclaimed. Alana forgot her trepidation and looked at Elenai, hardly believing her ears. Could I? She whispered. All her life she'd envied the court beauties their eardrops, to the point that she'd refused to get the single earring a man could wear. It just wasn't the same. In a twinkling, Elenai and Thayet had her in a chair while Rispa heated a needle. It shouldn't be any trouble at all, the redhead grinned. Being how you're a blooded knight. Hold still. Alana gritted her teeth as the needle punched into a lobe. The bottom dropped out of her stomach, and her ears roared. I'll tell you what the daughters told me when I had mine done, Hyatt said as her spell replaced the needle with a bit of silk. Beauty is pain. Is that supposed to be a consolation? Alana gasped. She closed her eyes against the next punch of the needle. This time, the bottle of her stomach continued to drop, and the roar was deafening. She opened her eyes onto more blackness. Someone was waving aromatic salts under her nose. Alana sneezed and sneezed again. What happened? She asked, struggling to keep her stomach in place. Rispa stopped trying to fight laughter. Hill and I wiped teary eyes on the handkerchief. Even the seamstress showed signs of amusement. Alana fixed Thayet with a darkling look. Thayet? You fainted! The princess gasped and suddenly surrendered to whoops of mirth. Can go to battle and take mighty wounds, but can't handle getting her ears pierced. Can nearly freeze to death. Can't handle her ears pierced. Okay, blah blah blah. Rispa and Elenai told the travelers what had been going on in the palace and city while the seamstresses worked nearby. The picture drawn for Lana was grim. Grimmer than she had thought from the recital in the stable. Jonathan's future subjects wondered if he was cursed. Duke Gareth had taken the deaths of his sister and brother-in-law hard. He was in retirement, and Gary was virtually Prime Minister. No one questioned Gary's ability, but everyone had known and respected his father, and few people outside the palace had ever met the younger Naxon. Many of the older nobles, who normally could be relied upon to support the king, had withheld support from John without giving reasons. Their excuse was that they waited for the coronation, which was the proper time and place. But Miles and Duke Gareth told Jonathan that the same lords had pledged support to Roald before his coronation. Claw appeared to have vanished, but Lana knew from Stefan that his followers still made trouble for George. A wet spring and cool summer thus far meant sickly crops, a bad omen in a king's first year on the throne. Everyone's waiting to see which way the cat will jump, Rispa said as Alana submitted to fittings, with no reason at all. They're hoping for another claimant to the throne, but who's it to be? The Conte Duke's given them no encouragement, for certain. With some, all it took was the Vizier coming here in great numbers, Elenai explained. Plenty of northerners hate them. Any king liked by the desert men will find he has trouble. Some folks say Duke Roger's older and more experienced than Jonathan, Rispa added. They say what happened 2 winters ago, she nodded to Alana, was John's plot to get Roger out of the way. Easy, child, Elenai cautioned, putting a hand on Alana's arm. It's just talk. No one's doing anything. Not even speaking out publicly. But Jonathan could do with a miracle. To her surprise, Alana smiled. Then we'll give him one. She found Miles in his study late that afternoon, napping. Once he was awake, Alana sat down to discuss the events of the past year with him. He could fill in the blank spots because he knew better than anyone else why nobles behaved as they did, and his merchant friends were always honest with him. They don't think Jonathan can hold the throne, he told Alana bluntly, until they see proof that he can. They're going to hold back. It isn't that many of them expect Roger to try for the throne. Well, those who live at court don't expect it. But Tortal is a big kingdom, and it's hard to keep it knit together in the best of times. If Jonathan can't rule, the fiefs on the borders will start to break away and form their own kingdoms. Chisane, Gala, and Skyr will nibble at the edges. That's what people fear. Ruled, let them be. And 20-odd years of that kind of beneficent neglect is bearing fruit now. Does that answer your question? Alana nodded. The jewel will help. After that, it's up to Jonathan and the use he makes of it, of you, bright young people. Alana laughed. Don't forget, he's got you on his side too. Miles chuckled. By the way, I have something for you. Knight told me he'd had an ordeal this afternoon. I brought these to make you feel better. He dug in a pocket and handed Alana a small box. Don't open it here. Expressions of gratitude embarrass me. He leaned back in his chair, putting up his feet. Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to finish my nap. Outside his study, Alana opened the box. Inside was a pair of black pearl earbobs. I finally understand what it feels like to be a non-artist. What? Thing that moves pictures. I'm confused. Not knowing what words to use. Okay. You know what? So, you mean if you finally know what it's like to be me trying to explain something to an artist, aka you, and why I'm appreciative of you being able to read my mind. I'm super knowledgeable about art and shit, and I'm like, gestures, thing! Yeah. That's why I like using you as my artist, because you understand what I'm trying to say. I think that's also kind of why I've unnecessarily feared tattoos, because I have tattoos. It's more, I fear finding a tattoo artist to do a custom design. I have ideas in my head. It's just like trying to get it out of my head to an artist designed to tattoo on body is like, what do I say? How do I explain? And it's like, I'm a people pleaser. As a people pleaser, I'm like, that's good. And rather than just like, I don't like this or that, blah blah blah. Only like 15 years, something like that. Yeah. MS Paint. The first experience, like commission artists love MS Paint versions. Okay. Like, oh, thank fuck, I have a map to the jungle. Yeah, because the map to my any idea that's in my head is just a mess. Like, I can't even make sense of it. How is someone else supposed to make sense of it? I mean, someone else other than you, Foppin, because you've somehow made sense of it. The map to your ideas is just a taint in a butthole. I don't know what the fuck I'm saying. I mean, that's the pervy side of my brain, not... Oh. Something just got typed and then I read it and like, huh? What? Now I'm confused again. Vibrating eyes. Oh no. There was something I wasn't paying attention to. It was just, oh. And read the whole taint thing. So what you're saying is your brain is the one that's on taints and buttholes, right? Yep. It's your brain that's in the gutter, not mine, huh? No, my brain's often in the gutter too. But I don't advertise it until you're the one that starts talking about it. Always. And no, that's not a J.K. Rowling quote. Bah. Sorry, I say that as I looked at the Severus Snape doll beside me. Not official. It's a BJD. I put them together myself with Alan Rickman head. So, yeah. Still, the word also kind of by its own is like, bah. You just threw into a single word. Bah. Anywho, we're finally at the part where Alana gets to be introduced to court again as Alana and not Alan. Well, okay, what am I doing? Okay, that. Okay. Every Tartalian girl dreamed of descending the great stair in the Queen's ballroom. With all eyes fixed on her, the night of her dreams signaling her out and bearing her away to a life of bliss. Minstrels made their living off tales of common-born girls presented at court by mysterious, wealthy guardians for just that fate. Now it was Alana's turn to descend. She felt a degree of panic she was unaccustomed to as an old palace hand. She had seen hundreds descend the great stair to cross the long room and kneel before sovereigns. In the ballroom, she'd met girls who came to court to make good marriages, foreign diplomats and their ladies, merchants, visiting the warriors. The list was endless. If they had been as terrified as she was that night, they didn't show it. They stood in the chambers outside the ballroom's great doors. Ayet, Buri, Ilanai, and Liam for official presentation. Miles to bolster their confidence. And Alana to be reintroduced? That can't be right, she told herself. The jewel snug in its box seemed to have caught her case of nerves. She could feel it humming through her black kid gloves. Jump up, she told Faithful, wriggling her shoulders. I need the reassurance. No, the cat replied, shaking its head. I'll muss your pretty clothes. Startled, she pulled away. He actually sounded serious. Illinois Cooper fussed with gold lace at her throat. I wish I hadn't agreed to this, Miles. She was elegant in mahogany-colored silk, her grey streaked hair in a heavy knot at the back of her head. I am so suitably entertained in the lower city. Hazel eyes met hazel eyes. The depth of love that made Lana wistful as Miles raised Illinois' hand to his lips. This will be just as entertaining, my dear. Perhaps more so. Strong fingers brushed Lana's new earbobs. Pretty, Liam approved. A nice touch. Alana's heart skipped a beat. The Draken did not have to wear dark colors or pale grays or lavenders of mourning for Lyanne enrolled. He was magnificent in blue violet satin over silvery shirt and hose. His hair flamed contrast. It isn't fair of you to look so good, she hissed. I could say the same about you. You think I don't have regrets about us breaking it off? His eyes were the bright aqua he seemed to reserve just for her. When you're queen of Tortal, you'll thank me. She was opening her mouth to say, I'm not going to be queen, when Gary joined them. Liam Ironarm. I'm Gareth. Gary, the younger, and Naxon. My father's prime minister. Can you tell me about Shang? Put his arm through Liam's and walked him away, calling, I'll talk to you later, Alana. Simone went to Gareth's personal manservant, now chief of the palace footmen, arrived, looking harassed. Gary bade a swift farewell and went to stand by the throne. Timon nodded to Miles, who took Illinois' arm. You're worth any of them, Mistress Cooper, Alana heard him whisper. The chief herald bowed and opened half the great door, admitting the couple. Am I all in one piece? Curry wanted to know. She wore a deerskin jacket richly beaded red and silver, tight deerskin breeches, and soft boots. She bristled with the silver and black daggers. Both the short and long swords were thrust in her sash. Her thick hair was tightly braided and coiled. The pins securing it were silver. She slapped black gauntlets nervously against her arm as Alana looked her over. The knight smiled. You look splendid. Your mother and brother would be proud. We are proud, Liam added. The herald beckoned to him. He drew a breath. Shang masters, I hate this kind of thing. Leaving the two women staring in astonishment, he went through the open door. Yuri poked Lana's arm. Ayet had emerged from the robing room. Alana's voice caught in her throat as the princess tried to smile. Do I look alright? Her hair was a mass of ringlets cascading from crown to shoulders. Her hazel eyes were big against her creamy skin. Her lips crimson. Her flame-red gown left shoulders and an expanse of bosom glowing against the muslin, then blossomed into a white, wide skirt. Rubies set in lacy gold shimmered in her hair and against her neck. The chief herald stared at Thayet too. stunned. Don't ask me, Alana grinned. He's seen all the beauties come and go. He told me they didn't impress him anymore. Thayet looked curiously at the chief herald. He bowed to her as deeply as he would to a king. Princess, may you always grace our halls, he said with feeling. Both doors at the head of the stairs swung open. The silence in the crowded ballroom was abrupt. Both doors were used only for visiting royalty. The herald walked to the head of the stair. He struck his iron-shod staff 3 times on the floor. Her most Royal Highness, Princess Thayet Jian Vilima of Selene, Duchess of Kamau and Thanyan. Alana walked forward with Thayet on her arm. Sir Alana of Traband and Alau, Knight of the Realm of Tortal, Freerem Terakam of the Khmeri Hao Ma. Jonathan rose, watching them. The awestruck look on his face was all Alana needed to see. She gave herself a pat on the shoulder, pat on the back for an idea well conceived. Thayet descended the stair as if she were floating, her face impassive. Only her tight, somewhat damp grip on Alana's arm revealed the state of her nerves. Jonathan walked down the scarlet runner between door and throne to meet them in the ballroom center. Can I just pause here for a moment and say, it's like this seamstress was wanting Alana to wear a dress. But she's presenting Thayet to John. Can you imagine Alana in a dress standing comparatively to Thayet? Everyone would be kind of like looking between the old lover and the new lover to be. And that would be kind of like just like everyone putting Alana down for who she is. I mean, yeah, like everyone would be kind of like looking at like almost like pretty duckly, ugly ducking, gorgeous, beautiful swan in comparison. Like not that Alana is ugly by any means, but just kind of like everyone's just like Thayet's the most beautiful of the land, and you're trying to put Alana in a dress beside her for everyone to compare her to, but Alana is knight first, woman second. And it's like it's a very good thing that Thayet had made the concession, the compromise. But I think at the same time, like Alana would have felt out of place just walking her down in like a tunic and hose as well, though. So it's like it's really good that she had like Thayet created that concession of fancy tunic and trousers type thing. But she definitely wouldn't have wanted to show her face next to Thayet's coming down those stairs in a gown, and like the gown could have been made just as well as Thayet's and still not looked as right on her as Thayet's gown looks on her on Thayet. Ah. Okay, returning to story. Yeah, she definitely would have been like basically would have been also like the gossip of the room, right? Ah. Alana gently, Jonathan joined them in the center. Alana gently withdrew her arm from Thiet's clutch, letting the princess walk the few steps to John alone. The King de B embraced Thiet gently and kissed her on both cheeks. Cousin, he said, welcome, using the form of address common to royalty. We regret the sad events that drove you from your home. Thank you, your majesty. Thiet's gaze was stern. Plainly, to Alana, she was trying to remind John of her wish to become a private subject. Jonathan ignored the hint. Until such time as peace returns to Serene, know that Tartal is your home. Offering Thiet his arm, he led her to the chair placed for her just below his own. She sat gracefully, her skirts settling around her feet in a perfect fan. Buri took up her station at her side. No one knew who began it, but a patter of applause turned into a roar of enthusiasm. In Serene, she was the female who should have been a male heir. The Tartalan courtiers accepted Thiet for herself. George also enjoyed Thiet's entrance, but he was not blind to her companions. He nodded his approval to Buri, and he was acutely aware of Lana from the moment she appeared. In her dark gray and black, she was elegant and somber. Her hair and eyes blazed. No one could miss the sword belted at her waist. Beneath one arm she carried a box not much bigger than her fist. Remembering his disguise as a stern-faced vizier, George defeated the urge to beam like a proud lover. She's done it, he thought. My darlings made them pay attention and dance to her tune. And I thought only a common-born knew how to do that. Waiting for the applause to quiet, Alana looked around. Even in his disguise, she knew George. She bit back a grin. She should have known he'd come, and winked at him, enjoying the approval in his eyes. Behave, Faithful scolded. You have business to take care of. The noise was finally dying. Jonathan nodded. Sir Alana, come forward. She continued down the carpet, hand on sword hilts, Faithful beside her. Thiet smiled encouragingly as Lana knelt before Jonathan. Your Majesty, she drew lightning and laid it on top step at his feet. The token of her allegiance. This I swear to serve you and your heirs with all I possess, in the mother's name. Taking the box, in both hands she flipped it open. The jewel lay on a black velvet bed. She held it up to him. I bring you the fruit of my traveling, Majesty, the Dominion jewel. Jonathan reached for it as total silence fell. The moment his fingers touched the jewel, it flared into life, blazing like a small sun in his hand. Jonathan held it aloft. First one courtier and then another knelt until everyone but Jonathan and Thiet was kneeling. We thank you, Sir Alana. His voice was audible in every corner of the room. And we praise the gods for sending us this jewel and our lioness in this time of need. And bye. And as I said, only one chapter tonight. We are reaching the climax. Oops. Spud 2. Okay. Anyhow, we shall return next week with chapter 7, Period of Mourning. Tomorrow shall be some more It Takes Two with Poppy. And then Wednesday I'll try to do some more Dead by Daylight, and hopefully my internet won't die on me like it did last week. Or did that do that on... Yeah, they did on the Wednesday, and it frustrated me to... We do a daytime stream maybe together. I won't be able to do a daytime stream until Friday because I worked from home today. I have to go into work on campus the next 3 days. But yeah. But yeah. And then I really needed to play some Final Fantasy 14 and get through Endwalker content. I know I've been saying this for the past month. I'll probably be saying it next month and the next month after that, I swear, but I'm gonna figure something out. Get myself back into it. Maybe that's something we can play together again. Anywho. Divorce reminded you of Divorce didn't remind me of Final Fantasy 14. I mean, you can't stream it. No, okay. Yeah, right. I mean, I do have some things installed on Final Fantasy 14, but no naked patches ideas. But yeah. Most of yours like accessibility. I mean, -2. I just better graphics, really. Just up the graphics to be more decent and not 20 years old, which they basically are. Or opposite gender pronouns, yeah. Let me, if I ever change to a female, let me know which that one is. I think that's always why I end up changing back to male eventually, is just like, they're pretty, but wrong pronouns. Yeah, I think the option to not do that, or just like nowadays a lot of games are kind of going the singular they route is the way to go about it. And then they don't need that, and then they don't need to code it twice based on gender, like binary gender. They could just be like singular they, and then they don't need to do two different coding of text. And like the magic doesn't allow for it. Yeah. Yeah, it's a simplified replace. Yeah. How about the art of being married? Yeah, tomorrow's the divorce. With a hip thrusting book. With many hip gyrations. Anywho. He'll attempt to animate. If I don't want to do that, I will be a sheep. Yay, sheep. Anywho. See if I can animate hip gyrations sometimes. Yay. Anywho, hope y'all had a good time. We will be back tomorrow evening. Until then. Dude. You're throwing salt at me. Wait, who's throwing salt at me? Okay. Apparently Foppin's throwing salt at me from months ago. Now. Well, it's some old ass salt. It's now rotten. No, salt doesn't rot. It's the meat that rots. And do not throw your rotten meat at me. Keep that sticky ass meat away. Yeah. See, that's not rotten, that's new. The Foppy has learned how to freely send things thrown at me, apparently. Depends on if I clear the requests for a few months. Okay. It's my hit mark if he just does it again. It doesn't make sense. Anywho, I am gonna be heading to bed. No, I'm trying to project it to time. But then I'm rejecting it as I'm giving your points back. Free ammo, no. Stop using your powers against me. I shall unmod you. Oh, I won't. Either way, you get a free shot now. You do. Wait, what? Ow. I'm a squared.
Hi, Lima squared.
Hi. How are you doing? Bad. Saw you were streaming and still want to say hi before bed. Yeah, I'm on my way. I'm trying to be on my way for bed as myself. Bedtime is always a nice time, right? It's hard to get to bed and then hard to get out. Yep. It's a yeah. I totally agree. It's very hard to get to bed, and it's also very hard to fall asleep, and then stay asleep long enough to get a good night's sleep. And then when you need to get out, it's just like, I don't want to leave. It's too warm. Who made mornings a thing? Where everyone, who made it so everyone has to boppin'. I will remove your mod privileges. Stop bullying me. I'll figure out how to remove channel points acceptance. But yeah. It's like, I want to know who made it so like everyone has to work the exact same times and exact every day. It's like, not everyone is a daytime person and not everyone's a nighttime person, but it's like some people are one or the other. But of course, the world runs on you have to be a daytime person. Unless you work janitorial jobs, and all power to people who do that. But anything that's just night shift and and unfortunately they're not jobs that are easily survivable living on. It unmods you if I time you out, Foppin. Yeah. 9 to 5 is disgusting, yeah. And I'm a 9:30 to 4:30. Not 8:30 to 4:30. Which is 7-hour day for me, but still. But yeah, 9 to 5 is disgusting, and it's just like, it makes sense for those who are daytime people, but not everyone is a daytime person. And like, I think the more and more of these days that things shift to remote distance working, like honestly, like my job itself, I do not need to be on campus to do my job, but they making me. But it's just like, me. I think good vibes are wife up, and yeah. I think all the vibes. You shall pass the exam. Too many vibrators. Yeah, that's the reason why you just can't keep your hands straight to cut hair to make so many vibrations. This is the reason. That's the only reason. What am I doing? I'm fiddling. That's why I'm so fidgety, huh? Yes. That's exactly it. Not the stammer bipolar, it's just because I'm full of vibrators. Yes. Just I can't even. I would have say it, but also just kind of like it's almost like too much to say on Twitch. Just like this stuff full of vibrators. Cat, what are you doing? You already broke something off my computer. You don't. What are you doing now? Yeah, my cat broke my bloody Wi-Fi antenna on my computer. Well, that's fun. Thankfully, I don't need it because I am hardlined in. Ish. But it's still annoying it finding that out. And I can still catch Wi-Fi on the desktop. It just helps boost the signal. Got like 1.5 hours of sleep last night, apparently, and then I did a whole 4-hour test, and then I got depressed and animated all day. So I'm gonna go lie down and try to be a sane person for like 20 minutes. Makes sense. And maybe that's also the reason why you didn't do great, is because you only had 1.5 hours of sleep. One should have a full night's sleep before an exam so your faculties are working properly. I was surprised now just replacing the same word with multiple butts. it's butts, humming butts there. He was restless the entire night. Yeah, that makes sense. Anxiety time before exam is a thing. I'm also gonna go lie down. Have a good night. Yeah, have a good night, Lima. Have a good night, Foppy. I'm also gonna jump off. Thank you for hanging out. I'll see y'all tomorrow night for some It Takes Two if you're around. Bye.